When you've helped more than 3,500 people with their job search, you start to notice patterns. And I've noticed a lot of patterns over the years. And one of them that I find in equal parts amusing and highly frustrating is when executives come to us and they say, all I need is the opportunity. If I could just get in front of the right people, then I'll have offers coming out of my ears. Everything's going to be really easy. But then when that happens, you see that that person cannot pass interviews. They speak to the right people, but they never get any further, right? And so there's a disconnect here. There's a big disconnect. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what that is. So if you're having problems with interviewing, if you even think to yourself, hey, everything's going to be fine, all I need is to get those interviews, well, this video is going to be really important for you. Because what we've discovered after helping all of those people is that the way you interview as an executive is very specific. You have to do some very specific things. Now, where a lot of people fall down is they either do one of two things, right? They think, well, I'm an executive, I have all this experience, so all I need to do is just talk about my experience, right? And then obviously the person on the other end is going to see the value that I have and they're going to offer me the job, right? Obviously, because I have so much value, right? That's one end of the spectrum. Then the other end of the spectrum is the person that does all this research and looks into how to interview effectively and all these different things, but doesn't realize that most interview advice that's out there is specifically for people who are straight out of college or are interviewing for lower level roles, right? And so they're learning all these questions that just have or answers to questions, practicing answers to questions that just have no relevance to them whatsoever, right? And so in this video, I'm going to show you what specifically you need to focus on. Now, there's one thing that's more important than anything else. One thing when it comes to your executive level interview, and that is you need to make it about the other person, right? I'm going to share some more kind of interview tactics, but the number one strategy, the overall concept that you need to really understand and have in your mind throughout is that the whole point of an interview is for the other person, right? You need to make it for the other person. You need to design your answers and design everything that you do for the other person. So let's say that other person is a decision maker, right? You need to think about what are the things that they actually care about. What are the things that are going to make them think to themselves, hey, this is the person that's going to solve the problems I have and exploit the opportunities that I have in front of me, right? That's it. Now, what that doesn't mean is that you're going to just list off all the things that you've done, right? I talk about this when it comes to resumes a lot as well. The mistake a lot of people make with their resume is that they think, well, I've been working for 20 years. What I need to do is write down all of my best achievements over the past 20 years. That's completely incorrect, right? It might be an impressive resume, but that doesn't matter. The purpose is, or what you're trying to what you're trying to do with your resume, right? The goal of your resume is to get the other person who's going to be reading it to think, this is the exact right person for the role I'm hiring for, right? Which means that oftentimes you have to not include a lot of your greatest achievements because they're irrelevant. And not only are they irrelevant, but they might actually reduce your value in the eyes of the person who's reviewing it, because they might think, well, this person's a jack of all trades, this person's a generalist. And guess what? Generalists never get hired. Specialists are the ones that get hired. So you need to do the exact same thing in your interview. You need to position yourself as the specialist, right? That's the number one thing. Now, there are three other things that I want you to really understand when it comes to interviewing at the executive level. Now, the first one is what you do before the interview, right? Interview preparation is so important, and I cannot believe that people do not pay more attention to this. The person, all else being equal, the person that's more prepared is more likely to get the role, right? Because what you want to do is you want to investigate and do research about three different things. The company, first of all. what are some trends that the company's seeing at the moment? General market trends. Has the company been through any funding rounds? If they're smaller, what are they doing generally in the marketplace? What are their products? What do they sell? What are the price points? All these different things, right? Then you want to look at the individual department. Now, the amount of research that you do on each one of these depends on the size of the company, right? If it's a company of 100 people, you can find out pretty much everything about that company, and all of the information you need will be about all of the entire company itself, because it's small enough. If you're thinking about a company like Google or Microsoft or GE or Ford or whatever it might be, right? You're probably not going to concentrate on everything. You're going to concentrate more on the specifics around what you might have to talk about. Right, so if you're thinking, wanting to get a role marketing as a marketing director for Ford's off-road vehicles, right, you can do more of your research about Ford's off-road vehicles than you are about Ford in general. So you get the picture though, right? You need to be doing the research about the products, the prices, the market, all those different things, right? So that's the company as a whole. Then the vertical, the specialism, the department, the product line that you're going to be talking about. That's number 2. And then number 3 is the person, right? The individual person that you're going to be talking to. What's their history? Where did they go to university, right? What has their career pathway looked like? Where else have they worked in the past? Is there anywhere that they've worked which is somewhere that you've worked, or maybe they were a supplier of yours or something like that? All of those little connections are so important, and you can even build up a picture of what that person might be like and what that person might be, how they might interview you, right? You can even ask the recruiter or the person that's organizing the interview, who's going to be interviewing me, what some of the questions you think they might ask. All of this research is so important. It's going to put you so far ahead of the pack when it comes to the interview itself. Now, when we talk about the interview itself, right, there's a few specific things that you really need to get right. So the first one, and one of the ones that really gets to me, is the amount of time that people spend talking in a conversation, right? If you've never heard of the conversation ratio, right, go look it up. Because what it says is that all else being equal, the person that talks the most in a conversation is the one that feels like the conversation went the best, gets the most value out of the conversation, right? You don't want that as the interviewee. You don't want to be talking the whole time, right? You want it to be 50-50 at a minimum, right? Which means that when you're answering the interview questions, you're answering them very succinctly. Usually 2 to 2.5 minutes is the perfect amount of time to be answering an interview question, even at the executive level, right? And what you should also be doing is following the end of your answers with another question. So, would you like me to go into more detail on a specific part of what I just covered there? Was that kind of what you were looking for? Would you like me to give more flavor around something? So that's how I would do it. Does that align with your approach that you're looking at right now? That's the kind of question you want to end your answers with, right? So short, succinct, to the point answers, which actually answer the question that has been asked, and then end it with another question back to them, which shows, again, the research that you've done and can help promote the value that you're trying to showcase during that interview. So that's one thing, right? And then the next thing is mirroring, right? So one thing that you really need to get right when it comes to interviews is mirroring. Now, there's 2 parts to mirroring. First of all, there's mirroring the general stance of the organization, right? Now, what does that mean? Well, if you're interviewing for a role at a company that is incredibly casual and you look incredibly professional, that can actually come off incorrectly. Now, one thing that you don't want to do, right, is you never want to be underdressed compared to the person on the other side, right? But you can go the other way as well, right? I learned this during my time at Deloitte. We used some of the best partners we had. They used to change the clothes that they wore depending on who they were going to see, right? So if they were going to visit Amazon, they would wear a different type of outfit compared to if they were going to visit a law firm, right? That's just the way it was, right? And that's what you need to take into account. So wear something smart, business attire, but you have to judge how you're going to be judged by that other person, Right, so that's the first part of mirroring. And the second part of mirroring is mirroring the actual interviewer themselves. Right? You can mirror them physically in the things that they're doing, right? And you can also mirror their language, you can mirror things they're saying, right? And it really builds that connection in an incredibly strong way. Right, and these are some of the really specific tactics that we help our clients with when it comes to their executive interviews. Because, like I said at the start, there's so many times when executives think that they're just going to be great at interviewing because they're good at their job. It's one of the whole things that I talk about the most here at the Ambitious Exec is the fact that just because you are great at your job, most executives, most VPs, directors have never needed to learn the skill of effective job searching. However, and this is the kicker, the people who are best at job searching, right, compared to those who aren't, have statistically better careers, right? Find more financially rewarding, more fulfilling, even if they're not as good at their job, right? Because people on average, or executives on average, move careers or move companies 8 times during their career, right? So those are the key things that you need to get right when it comes to your executive interview, right? You need to make it about the other person. You need to make sure that you're doing your research in the right way. And you need to make sure that the way that you are operating in the interview itself, right, is showcasing the best of you, right? And not making it seem like this is just a monologue for you and you don't care about the person on the other side, right? All of those things together, that is how you can pass every single interview, right? Be the most charismatic person that you can by following simple human communication rules. Understand more than any other candidate about the role itself and about the company, and then make the whole experience about the other person. That is how you'll get amazing results in your executive interview.